Welcome to Houston Newsmakers Extra. I've been talking with Mark Finley, a fellow in energy and global oil at the Baker Institute. We were talking about these gas prices. You told us why they're as high as they are. The question I have is, how long does it typically take, and within the current environment, for these prices to start going back down? I've heard that historically they go up a lot faster than they come down. Is that true?
Well, if we're talking about prices at the pump, Cambrell, there's a line of academic research that shows that prices at the pump rise rapidly when crude oil prices rise, and then they fall less rapidly when crude oil prices fall. There may be some, that is always the case. There's issues around, the local gasoline station on your corner, will have a high priced inventory that they need to work off before they can cut prices, for example. One of the complicating factors right now is that what's pushed prices higher at the pump is not just crude oil prices, but it's also a tight global refining system. And so there's more moving parts than is usually the case.
So I know that you observe this. The political arena is really, really on fire with accusations across the board about who's responsible for what. But in our program, you indicated that presidents really don't have much control over these prices. So, but it does get tossed in the political arena. What's your analysis as you watch that going back and forth? What do you want most people to know about all of this, and to block out, to put on blinders, and to get out of the political arena of that in terms of the way that conversation is going?
Wow. Well, there's a lot to untangle there. I mean, gasoline is important to consumer pocketbooks, but it has an outsized role in things like consumer and business confidence as well. I mean, think about it. I can't tell you what I paid for a gallon of milk, but I can tell you to a tenth of a penny what I paid the last time I gassed up. And it's the only thing you buy where the price is screamed at you from foot-high letters on every street corner. And so when prices at the pump make a big move, not only do consumers have to open their wallets, but there's also this kind of vague sense in the background of something's not right here, something's going on. So it has an outsized impact on things like consumer confidence, as well as on the job approval ratings of politicians.
So as you analyze this, how far out do you do analysis on what the expectation will be? On how far out do you look and see, well, okay, this is going to start going down. What's the timeline on that?
Wow. Well, I as we used to joke when I worked in industry, if we could predict where the price of oil or where the price at the pump was going, we wouldn't be here. We'd be laying on a beach somewhere on our own private island. Yeah. It's an inherently unpredictable market. I mean, look, right now, we've kind of come out of a peak point of refining margins, for example. Refining margins have started to come off. U.S. refineries, especially in the Gulf Coast, are basically running flat out. But, what about the hurricane season? And what risks does it pose? And so there's always things like that out there. At its core, this has always been a cyclical market. The price of oil and price of the pump tends to make exaggerated moves up and exaggerated moves down. It's driven by not just economic events, but political events and technology. And so it tends to be pretty messy and hard to predict. I mean, I think predict that in the next few weeks, we may see some relief because right now, both prices of crude oil and the cost of refining have come down from where they were a few weeks ago. But beyond that, you just unfortunately, the answer is it depends. We'll have to watch the economy. We'll have to watch the Russia situation. Here's my helpful hint, though. Watch inventories. Right now, inventories are very tight, both for crude oil and for gasoline. The U.S. Energy Department publishes data every week on those. If you see them making a big move one way or the other, that'll help you, know whether the market is becoming oversupplied or staying tight, and that'll in turn will give you some hints about where prices might be headed.
We had a conversation earlier this week about refineries and what our capacity is in the United States. And the fact is that there's likely not to be any new refineries anytime real soon, and that the last refinery was like 40 years old or 50 years old. I mean, that doesn't give a whole lot of confidence to the United States being able to do more. But you said that in spite of having fewer refineries, or some refineries have gone offline, companies have become smarter in terms of how they produce oil and gas, correct?
Right. So you're right. The U.S. hasn't built a new grassroots refinery in something like 50 years. And indeed, the number of refineries in the United States, I think, has fallen by more than half over that period, as a number of relatively small, isolated, inefficient refineries have closed. And yet, up until about 2 years ago, overall capacity of the U.S. refining system had actually increased significantly because the industry was expanding the processing capability of the existing plants. Now that did change with the pandemic. We saw a number of refineries closed. We saw some refineries being announced plans to repurpose to become biorefineries in anticipation of more aggressive climate policies, for example. And so, the United States refining capacity is still very large. The United States actually is a net exporter of refined products. But again, it's a global marketplace. And so it matters less about what is the U.S. capability and more about what's going on around the world.
Well, Mark, you've given me a good education this morning on what to look for and what to not pay attention to. So anytime a politician opens his mouth to blame somebody else for what's going on with our gas prices, I should not pay attention, right? I mean, literally, it's not the fault. Before I let you go, what policies could any administration put into place that would make a difference on what's happening right now?
Right. Well, I think the answer, Cambrell, is that political choices can have significant implications down the road. But the quick fix is much harder to find. Just yesterday, President Biden actually said, hey, we're going to have to put up with high prices as part of the cost of our effort with our allies to defeat Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Over longer time periods, things like a move to electric cars, greater fuel efficiency standards have the potential to significantly reduce demand. More policies that provide more incentive to develop domestic resources could increase supply. There's also policies that encourage risk-taking and technological innovations have potential to dramatically shift to move the needle. And remember, those innovations aren't only on the new horizon. The single biggest technological innovation that has moved the world of energy in the last 15 years has been shale. And that's been a technology that was applied to a fuel that's been produced in the U.S. for 150 years. So it can come from anywhere. But I think those are the kinds of things that political choices can do. But again, none of them is a quick fix.